And today we will be opening with a Lakota prayer by Jason Swartley of Vets for Peace. Jason, thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for Jason. Join me here. Hold the microphone. Hang it over here. A little better. Turn it up. Turn it up. It's at the max.
Just project a little bit, and it'll work.
Oh.
I'm this little, and I can get that loud. You can get a little louder than that. I guess I am going to sit up here.
Be a brief pause. Technical difficulties.
That we need a football game, boys. Is anyone sitting up here?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Nobody.
Testing. Is that better?
Sit at the
That
front.
might be the best we're going to get, folks. Sorry. You're supposed to eat the microphone, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, let's try that. Oh, so anyway, my name is Jason Swartley. I am Isamti Dakota. I work at the Kansas City Indian Center. Good friends of with Ted here from Veterans for Peace. And share a song with you all. So the song I'm gonna share with you, our songs don't really have names per se. We just kind of, when we're referring to them, we call them by either when we sing them or why we sing them or a phrase from them. And sometimes we say something descriptive. So this is a prayer song that my people sing. This is an ancient song, and I've heard it called in different circles either the healing song, because it is a prayer for difficult times, or a lot of people will call it the hard time song. But since we're here to talk about healing, I thought this would be an appropriate song, so I'd like to share that with you at this time.
Amen.
Hello folks, my name's Ted John. I am next on the program. I'm going to invite Jeff Hummel up here. He's another veteran, or member of Veterans for Peace, veteran of the Navy, and he's going to share a few words. Normally I would
read normally I would read the whole statement, which I've been handing out, but I really want to emphasize the action parts of our statement from the Veterans for Peace. So here goes. Veterans for Peace call on the U.S. government to live up to its prior treaty obligations, to negotiate in good faith with other nuclear powers to reduce and eventually eliminate all nuclear weapons. We call on President Biden to declare and implement a no first use policy and take nuclear weapons off hair trigger alert. We call on President Biden to sign the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which has approved by a vote of 122-1 by the UN General Assembly and has now gone into effect. Nuclear weapons are already doing great harm. The entire nuclear cycle, from uranium mining to nuclear bomb testing, has had particularly harmful health impacts on indigenous people and on women and children. Nuclear war and the climate crisis are the twin existential threats facing humanity. As Bob Dylan sang in his famous anti-war song, Masters of War, you've thrown the worst fear that could ever be hurled, fear to bring children into the world. So there's an awful lot of information that you can find on the Veterans for Peace, on the Veterans for Peace website. That's veteransforpeace.org. It'll help you in your discussions with other people and trying to convince them that they have to be part of this this effort to bring peace about in this world.
As part of Veterans for Peace, we believe that our job is to help end war as a means of diplomacy. And one of the things that we do is we ring bells in significant ceremonies like this, remembrances. The 21-gun salute is a call to return to fighting. At the end of World War I, throughout the nation and throughout Europe, bells were rung 11 times on the 11th day of the 11th hour, signifying the end of fighting, the end of war. What we do is that we ring bells 11 times, calling for the end of war. And while I ring this bell 11 times, imagine it being a prayer that will go out and topple the means of warfare throughout the world.
Thank you so much, Veterans for Peace, for being here today. Next, we will have a timeline of events and impacts by a Cherokee and Dakota activist and PeaceWorks Kansas City leader, Brianna Crawford. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Is it good? I'm going to make sure I talk as loud as I can.
Right into it.
Right into it. So basically, we're going to just go through the timeline. So let's really talk about the Manhattan Project, because this project had a profound impacts on a variety of indigenous peoples. It also, we were also impacted by the uranium mining. Now, I want to talk about uranium mining in specific. Uranium mining sites are dangerously radioactive. And those radioactive particles from these sites, waste, can be blown by the wind and into populated areas and contaminate water. This can happen if those sites are not properly disposed of. Pollutants from uranium mining can also contaminate aquatic ecosystems, threatening downstream communities of fish and wildlife. And indigenous communities were greatly impacted by that. And because of the Manhattan Project and what that did and the displacement, of indigenous peoples.
That ain't right.
So, because of the Manhattan Project, Harry Truman, he learned of this. And he thought that this would be a great idea, basically a declaration of demanding the unconditional surrender of the Japanese government. And on August 6, 1945, there was no received reply from an American bomber called the Enola Gay. Left the Tinian Island en route toward Japan. And in the belly of that bomber was the little boy, an atomic bomb. At 8:15 a.m. Hiroshima time, little boy was dropped. The result was approximately 80,000 deaths in just the first few minutes. Thousands died later from radiation sickness. On August 9th, 1945, another bomber was en route to Japan. Only this time they were heading for Nagasaki with a fat man and another atomic bomb. After the first minute of dropping Fat Man, 39,000 men, women, and children were killed. 25,000 more were injured. And both cities were leveled from the bombs, and this in turn forced Japan to surrender. I just want to say, because of the Manhattan Project, the uranium mining, the impacts that not only were towards the indigenous people, but the biggest impacts were towards the Japanese people those 2 days. And that's really why we're here, why we're talking today and we're speaking, because it's about you. It's about what truly impacted all of you and the generations to come from the radiation. So, it's a lot to say. I'm sorry, I'm about to get really emotional up here, so I'm probably going to leave this to Kim. But thank you so much for being here. This is why we're here today, to remember.
Thank you, Bree. And we need to remember each community that has been impacted. I appreciate your focus. And inside of that, I want to call up Hiroko Komiya to talk about a story of personal impact from childhood and for your family. So everyone welcome Hiroko. A round of applause, please. Thank you. You want to come right over here? And feel free to talk directly into this spot right here. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you to Peaceworks and Jane for inviting me back again. And thank you to everybody here for supporting this important cause. August 6 and 9 are days we remember the victims of atomic bombs. We take this time to recommit...
Closer, yeah.
Oh, sorry. We take this time to recommit ourselves to world peace and a world without nuclear weapons. As you know, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings claimed the lives of at least 200,000 civilians, including children, in blinding flashes of light. But the victims and tragedies didn't stop there. I'm here today to share my childhood story again. I was born and raised in Chiba, suburb of Tokyo. When I was in 4th grade, I had a best friend named Yuko, whose mother was very ill. One day, she whispered, that she wouldn't get married when she grows up. And she continued, "Did you know my mom was in Hiroshima? That's why she has leukemia. And I will get it someday because I'm her child. And my children will get it too. We have a bad blood." A few days later, her mother died, and Yuko moved away to live with her grandparents. When Yuko and her father stopped by to say goodbye, I was so sad and so angry that I couldn't come out of my room to see her. I was devastated as a fourth grade child, but Yuko was a courageous little girl who faced her cruel, unjust reality and accepted her ill-fated future at the age of 10. According to studies, leukemia was just the first cancer to be associated with exposure to atomic bomb radiation. My friend and her mother were just among the first. The immediate death of over 200,000 was sadly but just the beginning. Yuko was just one of many. Generation trauma and spread of cancer and other illnesses continue to bring death and devastation. During the peace ceremony in Hiroshima yesterday, it was announced that there were 5,320 names newly added to the Book of Hiroshima Victims list this year. The number was 4,978 last year. This is why I am here with you today to tell my story and voice my heartfelt belief. For the sake of this skinny little girl, my best friend Yuko, for all the victims, and for the sake of our children and the future generations of humanity, I protest against the production of nuclear weapons.
Yes!
I'm not done yet.
I didn't see the
I'm halfway through. Today makes 78 years since Japan and the world learned the horrors of atomic bombs. Unfortunately, according to the International Campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, ICAN, there are 12,512 nuclear weapons in the world today. Russia and the United States possess roughly 90% of the world's nuclear weapons, with over 5,500 weapons each. And the Russian invasion of Ukraine has raised a fear of nuclear weapons to a level not seen since the end of the war. It's time to abolish nuclear weapons before it's too late.
Yeah.
Amen.
Not done yet.
You take your time. You take your time.
Put the mic to your mouth.
Mrs. Baker, who delivered her humble but powerful speech in 2021, couldn't be here today due to the extreme summer weather. In her speech, she shared her experience of 2 nuclear bombings. The first one in Nagasaki in 1945, the second one for nuclear testing near Hawaii about 20 years later in 1962. Then she developed thyroid problems. In 1974, she had a surgery to remove her thyroid because of the disease caused by the nuclear fallout she experienced. Today, Mrs. Baker says she's very afraid that the war in Ukraine may escalate into nuclear disaster. If you remember, she made a remarkable statement last time. Quote, "The bomb was made by humans, dropped by humans, and suffered by humans. And this is no way to resolve conflict. It is an utter devastation of precious human lives. It is my wish that we never use an inhuman weapon like this ever again, anywhere on this earth. Mrs. Baker asked me to send her best to everyone here and expresses her deep gratitude for your support for this important cause. I'm not done yet. Lastly, I brought 3 copies.
What's up?
Since I thought there would be some children, I brought 3 copies of the book. It is called Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. Some of them may already know. This is a true story about a girl who was only 2 during the bombing of Hiroshima and died from leukemia at the age of 12. She folded origami cranes like this to make her wishes come true. A wish to live and a wish for world peace. I would very much appreciate if you would read this book and tell this story to the children so that they will continue our mission in hopes to abolish nuclear weapons so nobody will ever try to use these inhuman weapons again. Thank you. I have only 3, so if you have any grandchildren or child who you may want to read to, I have 3 copies. If you could raise your hand and I would appreciate it.
That's so generous. Thank you for sharing.
You know, they have all the paper cranes at the Truman Library.
Beautiful. Next up, we have Annalisa Cole and Todd with sharing about the Japanese flower arranging, Ikebana. Thank you so much for being here, Annalisa. Yay! Thank you for having me. And Kristen, thank you. In talking to Kristen, the way that I became involved today was originally to try to find some of my mother's students or my students. I teach Ikebana, which is the art of Japanese flower arranging, to see if maybe they would share their stories. Right now is a big travel time for the Japanese, so several of our students are actually in Japan, so no one was able to come. Also, a lot of my mother's students are older now and don't really get out. I'm hoping that next year I'll be able to bring what I call my second mama. It was my mother's best friend for 65 years so that she could share her story. I wasn't sure that I would be able to share some of the stories that my mother told me because I get very emotional, but I did tell Kristen that I'd try. And hearing your story, it really touched me and made me want to share more. Excuse me. So my mother started learning Ikebana, which does have to do with the story of the bombings. She started learning Ikebana when she was a child. The first school of Ikebana was called the Ohara School, and it typically, Ikenobo School, and it was typically done by Buddhist priests for the Tokonoma area, and also in the temples. Then it eventually went to around the 14th century. It got to the shogun areas, and the higher up, the shogun families were able to do Ikebana. Then in 1927, after World War I, Sofu Teshigahara founded the Sogetsu School of Ikebana. My mother first started learning the other kinds, and after the war, the Second World War, she decided to go towards Sogetsu. The reason being, she was in Numazu, 15 years old, on August 6th, and after Hiroshima, several bombs were dropped on Numazu, which is where my mother was from, and almost completely destroyed the entire town. About 10% was left. My mother and her family were all separated. There were huge fires. Their home burned. Excuse me.
have this, sorry. I'm also very emotional. My mother passed in 2015 and she was my best friend. So. She carried this around. This little piece of paper is in her writing, right there. And it says July 6, 1945. That watch found in the fire. She carried it through high school to remind herself. And to remind herself about those atrocities, but that things can also turn brighter. So when she, after the bombings and the fire, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker. My mother and my father were separated from the rest of the family, as other stories you may have heard where families were torn apart. It took them a long time. They sent all the children up into the mountains and into villages because they wanted children to be safe when they knew more bombings were happening. So they were separated. So my mother was with my father and they thought the rest of the family had passed away. So she actually was afforded, as a 15-year-old girl, a little more freedom, actually a lot more freedom than typically a 15-year-old girl would have. So she decided she wanted to change which school of Ikebana she studied. She wanted to go with one of the newer schools, and my grandmother would not have agreed, but my grandfather did and let her study Sogetsu Ikebana. The reason why she wanted to was, instead of sticking with just the traditional forms and all the traditional rules, Sofu Teshigahara founded the Sogetsu school so that anybody, anywhere, at any time, could practice Ikebana with any kind of material, since flowers and leaves and things were difficult to find with everything all burned out. So they could use any kind of material. And so born was Sogetsu, which my mother fell in love with, and she started teaching me at the age of 5. I fell in love with it, and so now I teach with one of my mother's friends and her daughter, and we do the flowers for the Japan Festival every year, which is coming up the first Saturday in October. And does anybody have any questions?
And where is the Japan Festival?
The Japan Festival is out at Johnson County Community College. It actually has grown from when it was the very first time, I think 40 years ago. It was at UMKC, but it was much smaller, maybe 500 people showed up. Last year they had 7,500 people. So the fire marshal got a little scared, so they're actually going to create 2 entrances for the festival this year because it has grown so much. Yes.
So what exactly is Sogetsu?
Sogetsu Ikebana is one of the schools of Ikebana. Ikebana is the art form of Japanese flower arranging. I have one of my cards on the Pieceworks table over there, just in case. I do teach classes and we do events.
And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit ignorant to this. So what is saw ranching? What is saw ranching?
Flower arranging. Flower arranging. Oh, flower.
Oh, it's flower arranging.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm taking a lot of time, so I will turn it over to
No, I was saying that I want you to be able to tell them more about your art. And what I wanted to say was that Annalisa will actually be in the Pieceworks Kansas City Art Fair. Yes! You'll actually get to see her work. So come to the Pieceworks Kansas City Art Fair. It is this September. Excited to see you there. Now I'm very excited to bring up our next speaker here. Today we have a poet. Their name is Eri Sakata, and they will be sharing a poem with us today. They also are going to be featuring some artwork in our Kansas City Art Fair as well. You're welcome to ask the questions. Come on up. Get on up here, Eri. So grateful to have Eri Sakata here.
Hello, my name is Erica Sakata. You can also call me Eri. I'm a first generation Japanese African American. I'm a multimedia artist based here in Kansas City also. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really honored to be here and share my perspective. Like as a, half Japanese and half Black individual. Growing up, my family and I used to visit my mother's hometown of Osaka, Japan, every other summer to visit family. Being mixed race in Japan was always an interesting experience. My sister and I received pressing stares everywhere we went that was outside of my grandparents' home. This was simply due to being American and frankly also being brown. Both were taboo characteristics within the area. I wrote this poem to illustrate the, at times, contradicting nature of existence as an individual with half Japanese and half American blood. This poem is called Morning Newspaper. We sat in the kitchen, inside a house, atop a hill surrounded by rice paddies in Osaka, Japan. With tennis ball hands, I grasped a gray newspaper my grandfather unearthed from sliding closet doors. Furrowed, silver-speckled brows adorned his forehead, his shoulders tilted with urgency. My Oji-shan, who I often called Papa, gestured towards the paper, marked with a lifetime of yesterdays. With juvenile pupils, I saw it, stained in black and white, an image of a country shaken, shuddering, crumbling with rubble. The headline whistled through my conscience with irony. The country where I envisioned my home was cited as the creator of the rubble, the sole producer of the carnage. The country I called home pursued pain towards the people, the family I knew as home. Though the paper whispered bruised and wizened stories from the past, its tone was a still and solemn shout throughout my mind. That day, my grandpa instilled within my conscience a rawness, an enlightening truth previously absent from my youth. America, globally poised as a vision of freedom, unity, and liberation, hung like a falsified fairy tale from the nape of my perspective. Its red striped flag lay tattered amongst the crimson rubble of my Japanese ancestors, amongst the carnage at their fingertips, amongst the headlines of my childhood. The nuclear past seemed not far from reach, nestled within the safety of that kitchen. And since that day, that red striped flag has never hung the same. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Erica. So grateful you participated. And poetry is a really engaging art form that we are wanting to utilize to bring more people to know anti-war movements, to know the anti-nuclear movement in Kansas City. And someone who is a co-conspirator in this movement with me, engaging the poetry community in anti-nuclear work, is co-director of Poetic Underground, AP the Poet, who I will be bringing up here to share a beautiful poem about community and engagement and what we can do together. Yes, thank you,
Hello. I hope everybody can hear me. I know everybody says that when they get onto a mic, but I really feel that way about this one. Hi, my name is AP. As Kimmy said, I'm the co-director of Poetic Underground, which is a community over in the West Bottoms that shares poems every single Wednesday on free open mic nights. And poetry is something I've been involved in for over a decade now, and has always been a space for folks to share personal experiences, to share things that are near and dear to their heart in spaces where others can hold them in that, like we are doing here. So I really appreciate y'all being here and y'all being willing to hear the poems that are shared today. I'm very, very honored to be a part of this event. I've recently been involved with Peaceworks Kansas City as being a part of Poetic Underground, as being a part of the Fountain City Poets Slam team, which is a poetry team that goes and competes nationally with other poets in other competitions and events around the country. And I have a poem to share with you all that's about community and about activism and things of that nature. And I really appreciate this space today. At the World War I Museum downtown, just past the giant metal doors right under the long glass bridge, they planted a field of plastic poppies. The plaque says they plant poppies to represent the people who fought for our freedoms, but I feel like they missed some people. So I plant poppies for protesters, for petitioners, for picket lines and peace workers. We are a nation that forgets to give our flowers to the ones who fought on our front lines here. Our park at the plaza was packed with poppy people protesting, and police poisoned the place, painting the property in the only poppy-colored anything they'll ever plant for us. Read a pop-up poppy book to kids at the library and get attacked by a pack of prejudice, provoked by their politicians, pierce the politician population with priests and proverbs. The past president's party bans the poppy history from primary education, bans poppy pride parades and poppy athletes with paper-thin policies. Patriotic Pied Pipers promise prosperity while they plaster propaganda on all their programs. They persecute the poor for their poverty, but don't peek into our prisons. Don't ask about the pain and the punishment. Purge the people, call them property. Picket Planned Parenthoods with cherry-picked books and pray for unborn babies, but don't protect the baby population that starves instead. Prioritize the privilege for their penthouses and praise those who drop bombs from planes on our people. We are so picky about the flowers we plant. Keep them fake and pretty under glass, hidden behind the giant metal doors in museums. Only celebrate those who fought if they weren't on our soil, but our soil is fertile land for a history of sprouting. But I dream of a picturesque poppy metropolis. See the vines grow from sidewalk cracks and street signs, swallow the skyscrapers in scarlet petal posthumous paradise, pierce the courthouse, the city hall, the jails, and the offices. The apocalypse is a sweet scented spring, and sunrise is a sowing of seedlings. Name them KC tenants, name them Decarcerate Kansas City, name them the Sunrise Movement, name them the Kansas City Defender, and name them Peaceworks Kansas City. Yeah. I want to plant poppies for me, and I want to plant poppies for you. And one day this city will be so filled with precious poppies that doors and glass can't separate us from that view.
Amen.
Thank you, AP. You can hear more amazing poems like that every Wednesday at Blip Coffee, 8 p.m. Free open mics. Come hear poetry, read poetry. It's a great time. And also, I want to thank you all for being here. This has been a beautiful event, and to be able to intentionally participate in this together is really what will help bring our community under the same cause. So I really appreciate all of these like-minded folks. And if you would like to continue to support this work, myself and Ann Sillentrop right here. Yes, come on up. You're going to be giving us some announcements. Like, come on, Ann. Can I announce it at the end, actually? Ann Silentrop's going to give us some other Peaceworks announcements.
Hello, my fellow Earthlings. I would like to do something positive, and so I brought some seeds that make plants that attract butterflies and bumblebees, and they're on the Peaceworks table over there. And I would also like to tell you a little bit about some things that Peaceworks has been doing and is going to be doing. So we went to the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability's DC days this year. We had a team of 5. Kimmy was one, and Rose, she's in the audience over there, Kristen, wherever Kristen is, and Louisa. And we actually met with Senator Hawley, and believe it or not, he was introducing that very day, that very hour, a bill to compensate people who had been harmed by nuclear weapons in New Mexico with the very first bomb, and also people in St. Louis their communities have been contaminated. And we told them there were people here in Kansas City who have been also harmed by making nuclear weapons parts. And his eyes got really big, and he was like, have you told my aide? And we're like, oh yeah. So we have flyers in the back on the Peaceworks table about different campaigns that are currently going on in Congress to try to stop nuclear weapons. Back from the Brink is one. There's also one that is asking to convert the entire production cycle into something to fight climate change, and that's Eleanor Holmes Norton's law. She has put that forward for I think 20 years now, every year. And with the Oppenheimer movie, perhaps that will start more awareness and conversation about nuclear weapons and maybe push people to get involved, because the government plans to spend $2 trillion over the next 30 years to redo all the nuclear weapons in the U.S., which is ridiculous, total waste of money. Billions, billions, billions. And the plant here in Kansas City, their budget is $1.2 billion. Almost 7,000 people work there, and you never hear a peep about it in the news. So another thing that we do is remember the people who have died and been made sick at working at the Kansas City plant. So on Memorial Day, we always go there and have a protest. And Kenny's going to be talking more about that at the end. And then we are going to have the art fair September 23rd and 24th. That is another positive thing that we can do to show our love for one another, because that is what brings about real peace. Helping each other, loving each other, forgiving each other. That is true peace. Bringing about trust among each other. So another thing that we will be doing is the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability is going to have a meeting in probably Georgia, and there's like 8 major sites that together make up nuclear weapons. So there's one called SRS, and it's on the border between South Carolina and Georgia. So that's going to be our fall meeting. So if anybody's interested in going, let me know. I'll be going. And there's going to be a fall meeting the end of November going into December in the UN in New York City, and I'll be going to that if anybody's interested in going. That would be the meeting of the states parties to the nuclear ban treaty. So it's like a worldwide meeting. Be pretty exciting. And then I'm planning to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in March. So if anybody is interested in going on that pilgrimage, let me know. So that's my announcements.
And you can see more of Anne and myself and another beautiful co-conspirator, Ryland Scott Keeling, August 17th at the corner of 11th and Locust. We are going to have our second arraignment. We were arrested for crossing the property line at the nuclear weapons parts plant. There is no other avenue to express our dissent or protest nuclear weapons, so we put our bodies on the line. And if you would like to support us and learn more about why we did this, you can come to our rally August 17th at the Kansas City Municipal Courthouse. We will be there making a ruckus on the sidewalk, and we will be there making a ruckus in the courtroom.
Amen.
I forgot I was going to do this chant, and if y'all want to join in, it's on the back of the program. It's called In Our Lifetime, and it is a brand new song that Marley and Chris Bruce made up to celebrate the push to reunite South Korea and North Korea. So I'll sing it first, and then I'll sing it again, and you can join in. So you got to clap first. Clap.
Okay.
Bringing the peace in our lifetime, no more forever war. We want peace in our time. Okay, we keep on clapping and we'll do it again.
What's the rhythm?
Bringing the peace in
our lifetime, no more forever war. We want peace in our time.
Bringing the peace
in our lifetime, no more forever war. We want peace in our time.
Now I'm going to sing the verses. No turning away, no turning away, no more forever war. We want peace first today. Separated families across the globe, policies of hostility taking their toll. Toll on the heart, toll on mother. We are here now For peace to be first.
I don't think anyone has the musical skills to keep up with you, Anne. You would just show us all up, honestly.
And that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that song with us, and thank you all for coming. We will be packing up and leaving this beautiful park, but feel free to come say hi to me. My name's Kimmy. Ask me any questions you have, and if you're able to follow us on social media, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.